And we are back with another episode of Jayson Confused. It has been a minute since we've been on. Took a little bit of a holiday hiatus, and a lot has happened with the Celtics since then. Moved up to the 2 seed. Jaylen Brown dropped 50, entered the MVP conversation on a national level. Uh, Anfernee Simons has worked his way into our hearts and minds. Luka Garza is a player again. A lot's happened. Matt, where do you want to start?
Oh, I mean, Jaylen Brown dropping 50 while locking down Kawhi Leonard has a personal place in my heart. I think that was great. I still see, I think it was a couple days ago, Bleacher Report had him fifth in the MVP conversation, and I just feel like the national disrespect is still too high for him. Um, I think especially with Joker out with the injury, the Thunder hit a little bit of a snag. I do feel like he should be much higher in that conversation, like around, say,
It was a franchise record, yeah, off the bench. Top five all time.
think I've seen some quotes from Jaylen Brown on that performance and about Anfernee Simons in general, and just seeing him kind of like really take a leadership role in this team, I think has been paying dividends. I think we're seeing like a team that is a little bit more cohesive. We've dropped a few games since our last episode. I did want to like take note of a trend and kind of discuss it with you. We
Okay.
don't get blown out. Like we don't lose games big. We lose games by 2 points, 4 points, 5 points. Is that a trend that you are seeing as a very optimistic sign that hey, like this team will compete in any game that you put them in, or is it something that you're a little bit more concerned about that we're having trouble like closing those close games? I wanted your take on that.
That's been a trend with the Celtics for a few years now, and it's one of the big reasons we look so good in point differential is because we don't have those big blowout wins that take our point differential down. Um, I think what it's really a sign of is that we have guys that are trying to prove something on this team. Throughout the roster, everybody this season has something that they're trying to prove. So even if we get in a situation where we're down big, like we saw last night versus Miami, take a huge deficit to the Heat, then the bench comes in with Luka Garza, Anthony Simons, and Jordan Walsh. And all those guys are still motivated to prove their spot in the league and prove to the Celtics and to other teams that they're good enough to be here.
Yeah.
The teams where you see just huge blowouts are either teams where there just is a huge talent deficit on those teams, where you have guys coming in that aren't sort of real NBA players, that you can just have a bunch of kind of G League scrubs off the bench if a team's trying to save
Damn.
money.
Harsh. All right.
I didn't name any names. I didn't
Yeah.
even say a team. But
Yeah.
there are teams in this league that'll try to save money and just have a bench full of minimum guys that
Yeah.
really shouldn't be in this league. Um, 10 years ago it was a lot more teams than it is today. But those are the teams or teams where guys are kind of over it, you know? Like if
Yeah.
guys are checked out, that's when you get to blowouts. So I think it's a positive sign that the Celtics have talent and are competing. It's also just because Joe is a psychopath and will care about those garbage time games and will always be pushing for us to get back into it. So definitely not a worrying trend to me.
Yeah, I think you hit it where in previous years, like we've also had this trend of like we don't lose games big. I think in those years it did seem like we had such a depth of talent that it was almost like we were too good to get blown out most nights when we had, you know, three, four borderline all stars at all times. I think it is more impressive this year, and it is kind of again symptomatic of that. Like we're scrappy. We're hungry, like we want those games. And yeah,
And I
those
do
those
hate the narrative that has come out where in past years, like, can Jayson Tatum close these clutch games? They
yeah.
have, 6 clutch losses this year. When, I mean, I guess, like, if you wanted to look at, like, last 5 minutes of a game shooting percentage, or there's a lot you can look at, but just counting the number of close games we've lost and
Yeah.
being like, I don't know if they can close. I've never been a big fan of that take.
Yeah, it's also, I think if you're losing 10 games and 9 of them were in clutch time, it means you barely lost 9, like 9 out of those 10 games. So I think, yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, a couple other storylines. This one I'm intrigued by. I want to hear your take. Derek White. I don't know if he's going to make the All Star team. He's,
He's
again,
on
I think
Zach Lowe's All Star team, and to me, that's more important.
that's what matters, honestly. Yeah, I believe is right now setting a career high in blocks as the best shot blocking guard in the NBA. We love to see that. He is at a career low field goal percentage, and I wanted to get your take. How real is that? Do we anticipate that kind of stabilizing where it is right now? Do we think that he's gonna have like a little bit of a bump following the All Star break or coming up? Again, he's been incredibly valuable for this team, what he provides on the defensive end. Um, and he is scoring over 18 points a game. He's helping us close those
His
games.
on
He's
off
hitting big
numbers are
shots
great.
late.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing fantastic. But do you think his shooting percentages, his efficiency is going to kind of come back to where we expect it to be this season? Or do you think this is just the result of he's got more responsibility offensively and that's just kind of the toll it's going to take?
I mean, the short answer, no. Like, I just don't. I don't think this is a thing we need to care about too much. Um, is it because he has slightly more responsibility this year? Is it just a blip? 20 games at the beginning of the season is still dragging him down. Um, I'm not entirely sure the reasoning for it. I don't think. I just never believe guys just forgot how to shoot.
Yeah.
And that seems like what it is, where same thing with Sam Hauser. Like, a couple of our guys started the season with ugly shooting percentages in the first few weeks, and they've been trending back up since then. Um, so going forward, I don't have any like worries that Derek White is an inefficient shooter now. Like, unless there was some reason to um, make that for like if there was an injury or something, or if he was much older, I could believe he was going off a cliff. But I'm just not. It's not really on my radar for worrying about Derek White.
Yeah. This is a fun, just because you mentioned his name. Sam Hauser. I learned this in the last game. I hadn't been paying attention to this specific thing. If you had to guess off the top of your head, right? Sam Hauser has played in, I want to say, almost all of our games. His minutes have been up and down as we've kind of folded in these young guys.
Yeah.
Off the top of your head, how many free throws do you think Sam Hauser has taken this season?
4.
Oh, a low ball. It is 10. And he's 9 of 10 from the free throw line this
Really?
season. But that was just like, I heard that and I thought that was a hilarious statistic that kind of kind of really like sums up who Sam Hauser is as a player. But yeah,
I
I don't
should
know
have
what.
guessed an odd number just
Yeah.
because I don't feel like he gets fouled on twos ever.
Yeah, I think he got fouled on one like a drive attempt late in the Miami game and it was like
Mm.
he hit 2 big free throws, but I was
Yeah.
just kind of like
Oh, he
they
can hit
said,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sam Hauser 9 of 10 from the field for the season and I was like, God damn, okay.
I would love it if he did like a Jaylen Brown post game press conference where he's like, these refs are out to get me 10 free throws all season, you know?
I am so sorry. My cat just yanked out my headphones. I missed that. Yep. Yeah, I'll take the fine. I don't care. Yeah. That's a storyline if you want to talk about Jaylen Brown since
Do
our
you think
last
that's
episode
fair?
that the refs are out to get him.
Do you think the refs are out to get Jaylen Brown?
I don't know if the refs are out to get him or if it's just like he hasn't. I don't know. I want to say it's almost like the refs almost look at players like I think they have pregame scouting reports where like if you're a referee in the NBA and you're going into a game where you're going to be officiating like the Thunder, I feel like you have a scouting report where it's like this is how SGA draws most of his fouls, look out for this and if you see it call it. And I don't know if that scouting report is out there. Like, because, like, when James Harden was doing his thing in Houston, this was a big thing of, like, there's no way refs didn't go into that game being like, James Harden is going to do this move 47 times. And, like, according to league rules, we have to call it or whatever. And I think there are players, Luka Doncic as well. Like there are players who make their bones on foul baiting a little bit when in terms of scoring, in terms of getting to the line. Um, Jaylen Brown does it, I want to say, about as well as the others. Maybe not quite to like that
It's
elite
that
level, but
vertical call that he's looking
yeah.
for. And I know
And
he talked about like communicating with the league office before the season and like sitting down with the head of refereeing and going over clips to be like, is this a foul? Is this not a foul? To try to kind of figure out where his fouls were going to come from.
yeah. I mean, we've had like that early season loss to the Utah Jazz where just the most blatant tripping call got missed and cost us the game. Like there have been
Illegal screen.
it feels like yeah, like around Jaylen Brown specifically, there's got to be a percentage of like missed calls by player and he's got to be high up there. I mean, he's getting some of those mid-range vertical spacing foul calls that he was talking about before the season. He's getting whacked on drives and not getting the whistle. He's getting I've seen a couple other like trips not get called. That game, I forget who we played, but the differential of like, yeah, they shot 27 free throws, we shot 4. It does feel like there's got to be something going on there. I think going into the season and at the start of the season, we were pretty low on free throws attempted per game, and I think that had to do with like figuring out our play style. We were still shooting a lot more threes. Um, but it feels like our offense is relatively stabilized and it does involve a lot of stuff around the basket that we're still not getting as many calls on as I feel like would be reasonable for any other team. Yeah, I do think the refs could be doing a better job officiating the Boston Celtics. Not to sound like a homer, but it just feels like there are, especially with Jaylen Brown, like what does he have to do to get star treatment at this point? Like, do you think that this is a nationwide NBA psychosis around hating the Boston Celtics? Like seeing the NBA, the MVP rankings and kind of how difficult it's been for him to climb up that, despite like the team success, despite his individual success. Um, yeah,
I
what's it
th-
gonna take?
I agree with Jaylen Brown's frustrations. I know it was the Spurs game where they shot
Yes.
20 and we shot 2. Jaylen Brown drove to the basket 27 times that game, didn't get one call, even though he was getting a lot of contact on those drives. I will say that this has become a storyline with a lot of fan bases around the league.
And they're all
That's
right.
they're all right and they're all mad.
Yeah.
Uh, but since they did this the last 2 years, were right at the New Year's break, they came back and they stopped calling fouls. Like you remembered a few years ago where everything just got like way more physical out
Yeah.
of nowhere. And at the time, I thought that was awesome when they did that because it made the flow of the game a lot better. There weren't all these stoppages for free throws. Guys were playing physical. Like if you really whacked somebody, they were calling it, but they just stopped calling touch fouls in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And it seems like they tried to do something similar this year because even other fan bases have noticed the touch fouls have stopped. I will say that this year seems a little different just because of the free throw disparities have
Yeah.
gone so out of whack, both for the Celtics and other teams. Like, when they did this in like the 23-24 season, and it was a big story, it was like teams went from each shooting 30 free throws a game to each shooting 10 free throws a game. And
Yeah.
now we're having nights where like a team will shoot 10 and
The
another
other
team
one
will
will
shoot
shoot
a
30.
4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knocking some all-stars stats down, Um, which is kind of a shame. And I can see why Jaylen is frustrated that he's not in the group that's still getting the free throws.
Yeah, I think in trying to like protect, I mean, I understand like the NBA is a product and they want to drive numbers, they want to advertise their superstars as like SGA is scoring 35 a game and getting three times as many calls as Jaylen Brown is doing the same kinds of things. Um, yeah, I think it's just a more fun game when it flows a little bit more freely, when they're allowing a little bit more contact. And again, like the consistency across the board is just something that
Also,
has
tell the
felt like it's
teams.
lacking. Yes,
Like if you're gonna make a
absolutely.
change in the rules, tell the teams. This
And
is the sorry, but the biggest place this has been a story is on like the betting shows,
yeah,
because since New Year, pretty much every under bet has hit for total score. Because they're just not giving as many free throws as they used to. So if you're going to make a big change like this, you also kind of need to tell the sports books. If you're going to have like these big partnerships and stuff, like if you change the rules to the game, you kind of need a
which I think the craziest part of it is you're changing the rules to the game except where your most marketable athletes are concerned. Like
yeah.
it's if you're going to be doing this, it's like every under on free throws probably hits unless you're betting on individual free throws for SGA or Luca or any of that. Like it's got to be more consistent. I think back to when they changed the rule when James Harden was setting the world on fire with the Rockets by doing that rip through move and the NBA came back the next year and banned that move. We're like, we're not going to be calling that anymore. Like, I don't know if it's just because they view SGA and Luca as like too important to their marketing versus James Harden back then, where there was still LeBron in his prime, there was still Steph Curry, there was still Kevin Durant, all of that, where James Harden was getting like winning an MVP off of foul baiting. But yeah, they banned that pretty successfully. James Harden found ways to be useful as a basketball player other than foul baiting, and kind of the game moved on pretty quickly. I don't know why they're not willing to hold that same standard for players now of like if SGA and Luca and anybody else you want to put on that list are as talented as we know they are, they'll find ways to be entertaining basketball players without having to like drive into contact and flail their arms up. Like that we should be able to have like a professional sport where we're not relying on refs to bail them out to make their stats look prettier. Um, and yeah, I think obviously our frustrations as fans of the Celtics and as fans of Jaylen Brown, like at least make it even. Like our guy deserves those calls just as much as those guys, despite like how many billboards they're each respectively on.
Yeah, and I think SGA, I mean, especially SGA, does draw contact.
Yeah,
And that is a skill. Um, but I would argue so does Jaylen Brown. Like he does get into guys' bodies and then lift up. And if that's a foul, then that's a foul. Um, it would make Jaylen Brown just unstoppable if that's a foul.
yeah, and what a shame
I'd be
that would
okay with
be.
that, but
Yeah, yeah.
where do you have Jaylen Brown in the MVP conversation right now? Because I've heard the joke I've heard is that he's the designated survivor of MVP candidates.
Yes, it's whoever can stay the healthiest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like if everybody else dies, he's there.
yeah. Um, I think I have him at the two spot. Um, all respect to Cade
SGA
Cunningham,
then
SGA than him. I think Joker, I mean, if Jokic was healthy, I mean, I think he might have already passed the threshold where he's been eliminated from contention. Or if
If
not, he's going
he
too soon.
if he
He has to
comes
like play
back
every single game if he
and
comes
if
back exactly when he's supposed to.
or if he comes back exactly when they're reevaluating him and then
Yeah,
plays every single game, he'll be exactly at 65, so he's probably out of
yeah,
contention for it.
yeah. So I think obviously that would have changed things a little bit. I think SGA, you have to give the one spot. The Thunder have just been unstoppable, showing a little bit of like kinks in their armor recently, but yeah, SGA again helped a little bit by the refs. It is just a phenomenal basketball player, and nobody I think would bat an eye if he won the MVP again. Um, Jaylen Brown at number two, I just see like I think Cade Cunningham has a reasonable case leading the Pistons, who are still like a very young team, still trying to like find their footing in the league to the number one seed. Um, Really, really impressive. I just think at the end of the day, I do kind of think Cade, it's younger talent, but I do think he's working with more talent than Jaylen Brown is. Especially to start the season when we were still trying to figure
Yeah.
out like who our lineups were, who our guys were going to be. And Detroit kind of came out of the gate and knew what they were doing and knew who their personnel was going to be that they trusted. I also it was a hot take when I said it like a month and a half, 2 months ago. I still think there's a decent chance we end up with a better record than Detroit. Especially if JT comes back and is able to be 75, 80% of himself in the regular season. So yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, Wembanyama's been coming off the bench for the Spurs still, like rehabbing from that injury. He's obviously that caliber of player,
Yeah.
but just in terms of like when he's on the court, how many minutes he's getting, his stats. I mean, it's also just I think there is value to rewarding intangibles in the MVP conversation. I think forever the NBA has had kind of a what is this award for? Like, does it have to go to a top seed? Does it have to go to the top scoring player on the best team? Like, kind of what does MVP mean? I think it would be beneficial to the league to reward the intangible of leadership. I think with SGA last year, he got the MVP. His stats were crazy, but it was also like this has become the guy on a very young, talented team, and like he's clearly like the nexus that they revolve around. I think Jaylen Brown this year has proven to be that. Of we've by necessity had to build up a lot of really young, unproven guys, and I think a lot of them have flourished due to Jaylen Brown, like his on-court production and the way that he kind of we scheme to get these guys open looks and everything, but also like just the voice that he's been. We've heard the stories of like him standing up for Jordan Walsh and saying you're going to be the guy who guards the other team's best player. Him kind of like giving Anfernee Simons the shout out recently. Um, yeah, I just think if the league starts to reward that kind of, I guess like maturity, leadership, being able to like take on that responsibility of like whether or not it's like this year because Jayson Tatum is out or whatever, but Jaylen Brown stepping up and being like, I'm gonna be the face of this franchise and we're gonna overperform expectations.
Yeah, that was always the LeBron argument. In a lot of years
LeBron
when
should
he
have
didn't win.
5 more MVPs
Yeah.
than he does, just straight up. He should have a defense. I saw this recently. He should have the defensive player of the year,
Over
but
Marcus All
yeah,
that year. Yeah. He should have. That year he was just incredible. I
yeah,
felt like Marcus All deserved one just because of for how long he was the anchor of like the best defense in the league.
yeah.
But
I think
no.
this is the thing with award seasons is like there are always going to be like years that you can look back and point and be like, what the hell were they thinking that year? And then you have like it brings all these other factors in terms of like, well, longevity, like he finally deserved one, like kind of I think about it with Brad Stevens should have won Coach of the Year a couple times. Joe Mazzulla should have won it already. But yeah,
Already.
one of these past few seasons, like this season, I also think Joe
This
Mazzulla.
season I think he should be in
Yeah,
top consideration.
yeah, but again, it comes down to like there's this kind of ephemeralness to the criteria of like what does it mean to be Coach of the Year? It's like We could give it to the coach of the best team, or we could give it to the team that overperformed the most, or did the most with the least, or like we just really don't know. And I think that makes it hard to justify certain decisions and also hard to like disqualify certain decisions.
Yeah, I think with coach of the year, we just always give it to the team that overperformed the most. And I don't love that because typically when a team overperforms by a lot, they underperform the next year or two. And
But
that's
if we
really
did
why
that,
we
Brad
see.
Stevens would have one.
I would have to go back and look at the year and who won it.
Yeah.
But normally what happens is a team overperforms, the guy wins coach of the year, then they underperform based on their overperforming the next two
Yeah.
years, and then the coach gets fired.
Memphis
It's why
Grizzlies.
every coach that wins the award gets fired within 2 years. It's like a curse award at this point. And then
Yes.
guys like Spolstra and Brad Stevens, who are probably the best coaches, don't win the award because everybody expects them to win a lot,
Yeah.
and they stay with the team for like 20 years. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of changes I would make to the awards. The other guy we kind of have in award contention right now is Anfernee Simons. That I've
Yeah.
started to see some sixth man of the year buzz picking up for him. I'm conflicted because he's been a big part of this team, and there's a few games we don't win without him.
Yeah.
He's also a guy where, yeah, his on ball touches will go down when Tatum comes back, but having another guy on the floor that shoots 50% on open catch and shoots
Yeah.
next to Tatum is super valuable. Um, and when the market for him, like the trades I'm seeing out there are like Terrence Mann just to get some money off the books. Like if somebody was
Offensive.
offering real stuff for him, I could see a trade at the trade deadline, but just kind of penciling in him to get moved for no return or not much return just seems like a waste to me.
Yeah, especially because we don't have a lot of room to work with in terms of assets. Like, this is kind of the year if we're going to make like a trade for a
Yeah.
higher salary guy. Anfernee Simons is the only salary that matches up.
This is kind
So,
of our last chance to go for a higher salary guy on this run.
yeah, so I wanted your opinion because obviously the trade that I've seen all over the place that Celtics fans are the most like excited about have kind of talked themselves into. Every fan base talks themselves into delusional trades sometimes. Not even delusional, but they talk themselves into a trade that they're like 100% sure is going to happen. It is the Ivica Zubac trade. Um, what I wanted to ask if Anfernee Simons does get moved for Ivica Zubac, and we'll probably throw picks in there or whatever if that were to happen, does that trade plus the knowledge that at this point it feels like a guarantee that Jayson Tatum is coming back,
Yeah.
does that buy us enough credibility in the league to be able to get a like verified secondary ball handler off the bench in the buyout market? Because I think that's what we would need if we make that trade. I think Ivica Zubac fits a huge need for us at the big man position and solves like a lot of our
Yeah.
rebounding and everything like that. But we do, I think we would at this point really miss. And I've been up and down on Simons this season. He's really like found his role, found a spark, figured out how to play with Jaylen Brown a little bit better in terms of like sharing touches and making sure that Jaylen is still kind of the focal point when he's on the floor. But I think we would really miss that like that ball, that shot creation, that ball handling off the bench. And so like if we move him for an Ivica Zubac or something like that, how do we fill that gap on our bench?
I think the most likely is that either we move Peyton Pritchard to the bench or make the rotation such that there's just always a guard coming off.
Yeah.
Because if you're also adding Jayson Tatum back, who can create, then you still have the four creators. Like how we've been running it this year, where we just always have two of Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Anfernee Simons.
Yeah.
We would just sub in Jayson Tatum for Anfernee Simons and just always have two of those guys. I think, do we have enough cred to get a ball handler, like tested ball handler? I mean, I bet we could sign Chris Paul right now. Like, he's just available.
Don't
And,
threaten me with a good time.
sorry. Um, but a lot of it depends on just who gets bought out. That's a big factor in that. Like, who
Yeah.
gets bought out and what teams are looking for ball handling. Um, if Minnesota makes a move and Mike Conley gets bought out, like that would be a great older veteran ball handler to have. Um, I'm not too worried about filling the bench ball handler role because a lot of times Anfernee Simons isn't like the bring it up, get everybody set guy. He's just the like, okay, I'm gonna score 10 points in 2 minutes guy, which is a harder role to fill.
Yeah,
Like,
he's Sam Hauser who can dribble and create his own shot.
and he's starting to get to the basket again,
Yeah.
which that was my only real problem with him to start the year, was that back in Portland, he was a dunk contest champion. Like, he was getting by
Yeah.
guys and getting to the rim.
And to
And over
start
the
the
last,
season,
like,
it was like I'm shooting threes and
geez.
nothing else. I
Yeah,
do
he
think
was
he's
doing a Sam Hauser impression, and now, last 5 games, he seems to have that step back.
Yeah, I think the mid-range game, I do feel like it's almost a little bit he's figured out how to like emulate Jaylen Brown a little bit with like finding that spot in the mid-range, that like 10 to 15 footer that he's feeling very comfortable with. I think the Celtics, I don't, this is not a category in anything, but I would be interested to see like who's got the best roster for mid-range shooting in the league. And I feel like we've got to be up there with his development there. Peyton Pritchard in the short mid range has been fantastic all year. Jaylen Brown in the longer mid range. Yeah, I think our versatility in terms of where we're able to score the ball from has been great, and Anfernee Simons has really found himself in that spot.
All the California teams are what jumped up, like the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Kings all have like very mid-range based units. Where like the Kings have like DeMar DeRozan, who's just all mid-rangers, Zach
Yeah,
LaVine, who just falls in love with his mid-ranger, um, Malik Monk with his mid-range game. Like, there are some
yeah,
teams that are a little heavy mid-range wise.
yeah,
We might be the most efficient in the
yeah.
mid-range.
That's
Like,
what
we
I was
get
thinking. I was like, I'll
but
take
as
Jaylen
far
Brown
as
over
teams
Zach
just
LaVine for
chuck,
efficiency. Yeah,
the teams that just chuck mid-rangers, like, I think there's a few ahead of us.
yeah.
Um, have you talked yourself into a Vika Zubac yet? What's your... I've talked myself into this trade, and I'm going to throw a shoe at the wall if it doesn't happen trade.
So I haven't thrown a flip flop at the wall since we neglected to draft. I think the last time was probably
Tyrell Terry?
Tyrell Terry. After that, I learned my lesson after seeing how his NBA career panned out very quickly.
That man did
I
lie to you about his height. That
Yes,
was just that was
absolutely.
he straight up he
He found me
gaslighted you.
personally and was
Yeah.
like, actually, I'm 6'4", and he was not. No, I think hopefully I've matured enough where I'm no longer throwing flip flops at the wall. That was always more of a draft day thing than trades. I think as Celtics fans, we've developed like a tough skin because of the amount of almost trades that Danny Ainge put us through, where our expectations for trades, like our hopes are always high and our expectations are always low. So I think in a Vika Zubac trade again, I've Anfernee Simons has like wormed his way into my heart a little bit. I would be sad about it. Vika Zubac would fill like a pretty big position of need for us, unless Luka Garza turns up being Superman, which it's looking like he might be. I think put me down at I think a 5, like right in the middle. Like I'd be happy if that trade happened. I do think I haven't watched enough Clippers games to know, is Ivica Zubac capable? We've had this conversation earlier in the year. Can he be an enforcer? Like, can he come in and take that spot of like, hey, I'm new to this team, but if anybody fucks with Jaylen Brown, like how I'm gonna prove that I belong here is just I'm gonna get in their face.
He can be an enforcer by accident. Like
Okay, all right,
just with his how strong and big he is,
yeah,
just having an extra level of physicality, but he's not gonna get into a guy's face in between possessions, I think.
okay,
I just think we're not gonna get him, is my take. I think there's a low chance that the Clippers decide to move him, and then I think if they do, we'll probably get outbid. Because there's going to be a ton of teams interested with his contract, and we can only trade two firsts, um, and we're kind of limited on what our assets are,
yeah.
especially if they want something other than Anfernee
I'll
Simons.
throw in Baylor Shireman. I swear to God.
Um,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't
the
know if that'll
Clippers
get it
are
done.
in the 10 seed in the West, and the fact that they're doing that while 18 and 23 is wild,
Kawhi's
but
looked great.
Kawhi's looked great. I have an alarm set on my phone for like a timer to see how long it is until he gets hurt again. So we'll see how that goes, but yeah, I think they are the Clippers. All right, let's talk about this. I think you might be right that they won't move him because they have won 8 out of their last 10. So if the Clippers start putting it together and figuring it out, is there anything else in the league that would make you want to let go of Anfernee Simons? Again, knowing that like we're kind of on a clock in terms of like asset management and tradable salary. It's kind of like now or never. And then if we don't move Anfernee Simons, how likely are we to re-sign him given how he's performing now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole tier of guys in the league that I'd trade Anthony Simons for.
Yeah. How many are going to be available is the
That's the real question. And one thing going into every trade deadline I have to remind myself of is that the Brad Stevens front office doesn't leak trades or draft
yeah.
interest. Every move they've made has never showed up in rumors before. It's just like an out of nowhere strike of lightning. Like very few people were talking about Derek White to the Celtics, and then there's a big move. Nobody was talking about Malcolm Brogdon, and then bang, we trade for him.
Marcus Smart, my heart.
Yeah, there. Yeah, that was
Marcus Smart was always like
well
there, but
because
I don't think Porzingis was ever mentioned in those trades. It was kind of a yeah.
well cause no because the Malcolm Brogdon for Kristaps fell apart,
Yeah.
and then it was like, okay, what are we gonna do? So people started talking about Marcus. Um, But the original trade came out of nowhere. So some of these reports, you kind of have to ask who they're coming from. So Chris Mannix, the reason a lot of us are talking about Zubac and Rob Williams the last few weeks is because there was a Chris Mannix report that those are two guys the Celtics would look at in the trade deadline. I thought the Rob Williams one, there was an interesting thing from Chris Forsberg where
Hmm.
he said that he hadn't heard anything from the Celtics front office about it, but Rob Williams' camp had been back channeling that he would be happy to come back. So a lot of the reports we hear aren't necessarily from the Celtics, but from other parties outside of the Celtics. It's great to hear that Rob would be willing to come back.
I love that.
I
Yeah.
love Rob. Um, but it's not necessarily like the Celtics are making calls about it.
Yeah. Um, for anyone interested, Rob Williams has played 29 games this season, which is the healthiest he's been in a minute.
It's more than the
Um,
last two seasons.
yeah. So, and
His
he's on
efficiency's back up.
he's on an expiring $13 million deal. Given his injury history, I would imagine if we did make a move for him, we could re-sign him pretty cheaply. Um,
I'm
yeah.
just wondering if he's a guy we see as more of a value to pick up in the offseason when we don't have to give up assets for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, to match his contract, it would have to be like a Hauser or something like that, which I'm not sure we're willing to do.
Hauser, it would probably be Anthony Simons and then get him back and duck the first apron in tax.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the Celtics, like we're seeing, are in a pretty good spot. Like we're not losing games big. We're even like recently having like dropped 3 out of our last 5 or something like that. All of them were close competitive games where we just kind of let it get away from us at the end. A fair amount of comebacks. We saw that against Miami where we were able to come back and win that game. Feels like this team has like the toughness to fight through the regular season and everything, and at this point it feels more about like setting up for the playoffs. A couple regular season trends, storylines, kind of areas that I wanted to pick your brain about.
Yeah.
To start the season, we saw the why not, my not explosion. Since then, he's kind of dropped out of the radar a little bit. He's still getting scattered minutes
He's had
around
the
like
ankle the last few games.
yeah. What are your thoughts in terms of, I guess, broader than just Minot, but extensions going into this offseason? Who do you see as like, we need to keep this guy and build with him moving forward? Obviously, Minot is in that discussion. Kata is in that
I think
discussion.
Kata is the number one guy I would
Yes.
be talking to about an extension right now. Part of that's just the position of need.
Yes.
He's kind of had a rough couple games, so it'll be interesting to see at the end of the season kind of where he levels out to. Because he was playing out of his mind for a few months there,
Yeah.
where it seemed like he might be like a fringe. This is Kata's team now guy. Um,
I don't know anybody
you
who
didn't
was
watch
saying
those
that, but
games?
we
I
all
was saying that
we
to
all
myself.
yeah.
Um,
The Neemias Queta
so-
Boston Celtics.
but if we can lock him up on like a Sam Hauser esque extension now,
Yeah.
even if he doesn't get back to that like super plus minus block everything guy,
Yeah.
um, then I would lock that in. Jordan Walsh, I think, is a guy to look at for an extension. Um,
Also, a guy who's had a little bit of a regression.
yeah,
Obviously, had that month where he was just hitting every single shot, getting every single loose ball. Has come back down to earth a little bit. Wanted to know what your thoughts are on, yeah, where he ultimately kind of fits in. What do we think his kind of average on court production is going to be moving forward, especially once Tatum comes back and takes some of those forward minutes. Um, yeah,
I mean, I think he's shown a lot. Um, all of these guys are still super young, and guys that young are rarely consistent. So I'm not super surprised we've seen kind of a fall off from that group of guys that was winning us a lot of games to begin the season.
yeah,
Um, I think Jordan Walsh would probably be my second kind of if we're gonna like list like who you call for an extension first.
yeah.
Like number one, it's Kata. Number two, it's Jordan Walsh, just because he's shown the level of defense he can play, his ability to knock down jump shots at an efficient level, and just know how to play on offense. Like being able to attack a closeout. Um, his inconsistencies with minutes, a lot of that's just due to the amount of wing players we have on this team. I
Yeah.
think if Joe didn't have so many options, then yeah, he would still be, starting. But because you can always just plug in a Sam Hauser, who is a more proven veteran and doesn't have the same upside on defense, but is very mistake free on defense, then it's hard to keep that starting role.
So here's a question that I have. I think you're absolutely right about Jordan Walsh, and he is somebody that, in terms of extensions, is somebody that I want to see around for the long term. I think because of his age, he's a couple of years younger than Kata. Kata's obviously more of a position of need, but Jordan Walsh is like the flashes he's shown. I'm very like, let's lock him up. Would it make sense for this Celtics? And obviously, it's going to depend on the front office directive in terms of the tax and everything like that. Given our depth of wing players, how all of them have shown flashes, with Jayson Tatum coming back on top of that, is it worthwhile to see, again, having seen Minot drop off a little bit? Part of that for sure has been related to like he hasn't been fully healthy. Would it make sense for us to offer him an extension? I think we could get him for a cheaper value, certainly, than we could to start the season. But this is also a guy who, at the beginning of the year, was like trying to prove he belonged in the NBA. If we can get him for like a 4 for 40 or something like that, is that worth doing, knowing that we might not have that many minutes to give him, but just to give us another flexible, like tradable contract down the line? Is that something that would interest you? Also, like injury insurance kind of a thing.
This is on Jordan Walsh.
This is on Josh Minot. Jordan Walsh is
Four
untradeable.
for
Yeah.
40 seems expensive for Josh Minot to me.
Yeah, it's just salaries in the NBA have gotten so inflated that I was like, $10 million a year is like kind of a steal contract now, for a guy who has any kind of impact on being able to, like, there have been games that Josh Minot won for us.
That's true. And he's a good player. I think he'll have a long career. If his price is 4 for 40, I think we can get that a year from now.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of times when you're signing these extensions, it's to get guys on a bargain deal. And if you're not going to get them on a bargain deal, you might as well wait out their contract and just sign them in free agency. Because we have Jordan Walsh, or we have Josh Minot on a minimum this year and next year. And the idea that he was a guy who was going to sign a multi-year minimum deal this offseason,
Yeah.
and now we're not going to be able to re-sign him for less than 4 for 40, is like a crazy jump for a guy who's gotten a good number of DMP coaches' decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. God, our wings are so loaded right now. I think,
And I think that's why we're going to get some bargain extensions out of it, is just because when other teams see, like, okay, he played 12 minutes a game, a lot of DMP coaches' decisions, had some really good defensive flashes, and shot the ball well. That's not entirely like okay, we need to go out and pay this guy
yeah,
resume. That's like if the Celtics just let him go, somebody would give him
we'll see
five
what we can
mil.
do. Yeah.
But I don't think there's going to be like a ton of teams fighting over Josh Minot at this point. Even though I've been impressed with what I've seen from
Yeah.
him,
You know what? Josh Minot will fight for you.
you know,
Um,
if you ever need a pickup team to join, we cannot pay you, but
what other storylines do you think kind of hitting around close to the midway point in the season? I think almost exactly the midway point in the season. We've played 40 games. What storylines are you looking forward to in the second half of the season? Who are
the
you most
biggest
excited to
one,
see?
yeah, I mean, the guy I'm most excited to see and the biggest storyline for the rest of the year is just going to be Jayson Tatum coming back.
Hmm.
What does he look like when he comes back? Is he the Jayson Tatum of old? Does he need some ramp up time? And just given how good this team has been, does their style of play change? Do we go back to having a lot of Jayson Tatum post up touches at the high post where he kind of like looks around the floor and decides what happens? I know, like, there's an impulse where, like, it would be fun to just keep playing how we're playing and be like, all right, Jayson Tatum can fit into this. Um, but I think we also just got to remember how good Jayson Tatum is. And
Yeah,
if
so
giving him touches makes him, you know, most of Jayson Tatum for the playoffs, that might be worth it.
yeah, I mean, I think I have nightmares about Jason Tatum ever going through an injury like this again. So I'm kind of like, if ramping up for him means inserting him into this offense as like I'm gonna shoot, like be a catch and shoot guy as I like feel more comfortable, like getting game time minutes in the NBA and like limiting the amount that he's pushing off that leg at first. Like I think we've created an offense where he can slide into it pretty easily and then work in his style of play like at his comfort level. Like I don't think we need to be running an offense through him in the first month or two that he's back. Even like against bench units or whatever. I think that that's something that he can kind of explore possession by possession. But I think it is good that we've built a team where he can just kind of slot in and fill one of those wing roles and like rebound and shoot threes and then kind of explore the rest of his game again, kind of at his pace. Just please, Jayson Tatum, don't ever don't ever get hurt like that again.
Again.
Yeah.
I mean, if Jayson Tatum had his season last year, this year, I think he would win the MVP.
Hmm.
Like, the level he was playing at before he went down, I feel like some of us have forgotten just how good Jayson Tatum can be at his best. Uh, the other question is Jaylen Brown can dribble left now. So
Yep.
is there like should we be working on like a some sort of pick and roll with the two of them or some sort of action that the two of them can play together? Cuz before the issues were if you ran a pick and roll with the two of them, they would just always switch cuz they're about the same size. And Jaylen Brown was the smaller player, but he didn't really have good enough of a handle to make that work.
Yeah.
And Jayson
Well, he did.
Tatum had the better handle, so it made sense for him to have the ball in his hand. So I'm wondering if with Jaylen Brown's kind of ascension to an MVP caliber player, should we put more focus into like, okay, how do these guys play together from here on out?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've had the better part of a decade now to work on that, and I think the development of Jaylen Brown's skill level, especially with that dribbling, and he did recently reveal like he's had a left wrist issue that has been bothering him for years.
Modern
Um,
medicine.
yeah, so he's been getting like stem cell treatments on his wrist, but we finally have an answer to like why did Jaylen Brown struggle to go left so much? But no, I think if I'm Joe Mazzulla, what a life I'm leading. But also I think something that I would explore that I think the development of Jaylen Brown as like an elite top tier in the league mid-range shooter, which he's always been like very his mid-range has been going on for years, but the way that he's hitting it this year, the level that he's playing at, the way that teams need to defend him, I would almost rather see, and again putting like less pressure on Jayson Tatum's like legs, his ankle, everything. I want to develop their pick and pop game where you have Jaylen Brown driving in the defender almost like if it's okay, we're guarding Jaylen Brown one on one in the mid range, like good luck to you. So if the defender has to follow to pressure Jaylen Brown and he's able to just kick it back to Jayson Tatum for more open threes. Again, Jayson Tatum from three is just an absolute sniper. If he's getting open looks because Jaylen Brown's drawing defenders, that's something that again, like Jaylen Brown has developed this year. He's never been a flashy passer, and I still don't think he is, but he's able to execute a lot more just like simple. He's great with shovel passes. He's great with just like, I'm going to find the open guy with like minimal effort. I think if that's a part of their two-way game that Jayson Tatum hasn't been able to get a lot of like wide open looks. Like he just hasn't had that from his kind of like playing partner in Jaylen Brown. So if Jaylen is able to get him more wide open threes, I think that's a really easy way for Jayson Tatum to like find a rhythm and settle in, and could be a very efficient tool in our offense.
Yeah, and that's kind of similar to how we've used in the reverse Jaylen Brown in the past, where Jaylen Brown's been on the floor and that's prevented the other team from doubling Tatum when he has the ball. Um, and having Tatum on the floor will prevent teams from doubling Jaylen Brown. So they do help each other by being out there, but I just don't think we can just say like, okay, Jaylen, you got to go back to the corner now. After when he's second in MVP,
Yeah,
um, and
first in
flirting
our
with like
hearts.
leading, setting a Celtics franchise record for scoring, for a two seed. Like you can't just be like, all right, you're back to being a floor spacer and if we need you ISO guy.
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be fascinating to see how that relationship develops. Um, I think Jason Tatum throughout his career has shown like a very high level of maturity. where I think he recognizes that he is an MVP caliber player in the NBA. I think he also recognizes that Jaylen Brown is an MVP caliber level in NBA, whatever. I think he'll be able to approach like his return and fitting into this offense and working with Jaylen Brown with that level of maturity where it's not a one of them needs to kind of get relegated to a certain role, but it is. And I think Jaylen Brown again is has shown like tremendous strides in leadership this year where he's gonna be like, hey, JT is a very, very important part of this team. He will help us win a lot of basketball games. So how do we like figure out how to play together? And again, they've just had so much time playing together and they've seen each other develop these different parts of their games. Like Jayson Tatum was watching Jaylen Brown develop that mid-range game. Like Jaylen Brown was watching Jayson Tatum like figure out how to be super efficient shooting from three. I think they'll be able to play off each other pretty well, pretty naturally. And I think it also helps that JT has been there the whole season. Like there have been stories about it. Like he's in every film session. He's going to every game. Like it's not like he's kind of coming back in and is like, all right, how do I fit into this? Like he's been watching this team develop this whole time, and I'm sure, at least in the back of his head, if not like actively having conversations with coaches, like been figuring out, okay, how do I reintroduce myself to this?
Yeah, I think Joe Mazzulla, just the relationship he has with those two guys, like I trust them to all try to figure it out the best way they can. Like I'm not saying any of them's going to be like real diva about it and like this is my team.
Yeah,
That seems completely out of what we've seen from those guys from a personality perspective, but just in X's and O's, it is going to be a challenge to figure out kind of how this all works together. Um, and I think the most likely thing is it's just going to take shots from everybody else on the roster and give them to Tatum. Like it's
yeah, and I
not going
think
to.
this is the biggest question when Jason Tatum returns is like, how are we getting Hugo his shots?
Yeah, where's Hugo's shots coming
Where's
from?
Hugo's shots going?
Hugo can
Um,
affect the game without shooting, so I
yeah,
have faith in him because of that.
yeah. Do you ever? I don't. I don't even know how to phrase this. Are there any games coming up against like a lower, like bottom of the standings team where you're like, you know what? Let's just kind of like let's sit our guys. Like let's let Jaylen Brown have a night off. I just want 40 minutes of Ugo, 40 minutes of Jordan Walsh. Like give me 30 minutes of Kata. Like I do. There. Like I
We
want
don't
to
have a
see
garbage time
more.
this year.
Yeah.
There's been no like what you were saying about how we've had all close games. We haven't had like a garbage time lineup really.
Yeah.
Um,
The garbage time lineup is Chris Boucher's 5 minutes that he gets every 3 weeks.
he hasn't gotten those in a while.
Yeah.
One okay, so one trade name I wanted to throw out there that
Hit me.
won't excite you,
Oh, good. Okay.
but I think is a real possibility. How do you feel about Nick Richards?
Huh.
Because this is the other report I saw recently. It was from a
Mm-hmm.
Suns reporter. The Suns are currently like 1.5 million over the tax.
Yeah.
They signed Nick Richards this offseason to a $5 million deal. But Mark Williams and Malawach, their first round pick,
Mm-hmm.
are kind of like just better versions of Nick Richards.
Yeah, Mark Williams is good.
Yeah, Mark Williams is good. Keep an eye. Malawach is a very similar player, where he's just
Mm-hmm.
like a tall, lanky shot blocker, um, who's also been good so far this year. So Nick Richards has all been like DMPs. The report was that they're looking to trade him to get under the tax. So they're not like looking for assets for him. Xavier Tillman for Nick Richards straight up works. It would add some salary for this year, but if
Yeah.
we're making another move and getting below, I could see it being interesting.
Can I
And
be so for
yeah,
real? Until you said that, I had for probably about a month now, forgot Xavier Tillman was on this team.
He's overdue for his like one game
His
every
one
two
game,
months.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have that in our back pocket.
Yeah, I went
It
straight to Chris Boucher. I
right.
forgot about Xavier
You're
Tillman's
doing.
5 minutes.
If you wanted it to be Chris Boucher, I think that would work too,
Yeah.
mathematically.
So I'm not interested in Nick Richards, and here's why. I don't think we've spent enough time talking about Luca Garza is
That's
Superman.
fair.
Yeah. So I think when you factor that in, like we have the son of Krypton on our team, grabbing as many offensive rebounds as humanly possible. Um, yeah, I do like is Nick Richards. I just looked over his stats from this year. Not great.
He really
He's
hasn't played. Yeah.
I mean, he's played 29 games. He's averaging like 9 minutes a game. Um, True shooting percentage under 50% for a center. Like, it really is partly because I'm still waiting. And like, we keep saying center is a position of need. We have centers. We just need to find out if any of them are good. Um, I want to see Amari Williams get some
That's
NBA
fair.
minutes. Like I'm still kind of waiting on that, and like I don't think we need to mess with the formula. Like we're playing well, we're winning games, but it would be nice to have a garbage time lineup just to get Amari Williams some run. Um, Again, it seems like Luca Garza got buried in the rotation for a couple weeks and then came back and has been great. So I think that we have like a little bit of flexibility to play around with different lineups. Um, Especially I think when Jayson Tatum comes back, like if he looks anything close to not like at his peak, but if he's able to be like a supercharged Sam Hauser, a 6'10 Anfernee Simons, whatever, um, I think we'll have a couple more games where we have comfortable leads in the fourth quarter. And I just would like to see again. This is like assuming we don't make a move for a Rob Williams, a Vika Zubac, like whatever. Um,
So you're just not interested in the like bargain bin level guys.
I think it depends on the bargain bin. Like I think Nick Richards, I'm out on because just I don't think he's significantly better than if we were giving Xavier Tillman those minutes or if we were giving Chris Boucher those minutes. Like I just don't see a lot from him. I would rather. I think when you draft a guy like Amari Williams, he's also like he's been fantastic in the G League and
Yes. He had a 30
the
piece the other night.
yeah, the list of guys who are killers in the G League and then don't do much in the NBA is very long, but I think it's still worth exploring and finding out kind of how he performs at this level. His shot blocking is something that, like, again, if his game translates to the NBA, he'll be a very valuable backup big. I would just kind of like to find that out sooner rather than later because our roster is about to get like a little more depth in it with Jayson Tatum coming back and if there's a time, I'd like to use that to just see what these guys are capable of. I think again, that's why I'm like, let's have a game where we give Ugo just a ton of run and see like, yeah, I think just like we're in a weird period where we're second in the East. Obviously, the goal is to win more games. Let's get up to first in the East, all of that. But it's also this is a new core, and we have spent the first 40 games figuring out how to play together, how to win games that way and I don't want to interrupt that flow, but I do want a little bit more like kind of development time. And obviously, Joe Mazzulla has just been like, whatever's working, we're running with that. We've seen him shake up the starting lineup a bunch of times, try out different guys. Um, I think it is just a little bit of like, let's pick our guys and like put some energy into developing them. Like when Jayson Tatum comes back, I want Ugo to be a killer. Like I want him to be ready to come off the bench and help out those units and figure out ways for them to play together and as much run as we can give those guys, I'm happy to.
Yeah, Amari Williams seems to be. They're kind of following a Kada like growth plan for him, where it's like first year on a two-way, he's like spending all his time in the G League, and then like the next year Kada was like a two-way guy, but spent a lot of time up with us, and
Yeah.
then the next year we converted him, but he was still below a lot of guys. So I could see us moving him along kind of slowly like that. Just with the depth, like with the high end depth we don't have at center that we did a few years ago.
Yeah.
I would rather see that sped up a bit. So I'm on the
Yes.
same page. Like, I'd like to see what Amari Williams looks like with some NBA run, especially given like what we gave up in that trade. Because like Maxine Renault and Cockbrenner have both been great this year. So given that like he was the center we chose to draft over those two, even though like we traded down to draft him, I would still like to see us get some sort of tangible on the court return from that move. Um,
And I think
yeah,
if there's anything this squad has proven this year, it's that they are very flexible in being able to win games with a variety of guys on the floor, where it almost does feel like we threw Ugo out there and he was 19 years old and hadn't gotten a ton of run, and we found ways to win with him. He obviously has a huge part in that, the way he plays, everything like that. But Jordan Walsh hadn't gotten many NBA minutes. We threw him out there and found ways to win with him. There is this might be like a little bit overconfident in our ability to just like, let's throw somebody out there, we'll figure out how to win with them. And I think with Amari Williams, it's like, let's give him some minutes. I trust the rest of the team to be able to score, to be able to defend at a high level, and just kind of give him room to grow without really jeopardizing our chances of winning games, because we've been able to win games with just about everybody on this team.
yeah. I think that I mean his minutes would come at the detriment of a Josh Minot or a Luca Garza.
Yep.
Um, and the amount of value we've gotten out of those minutes to kind of see who those guys are and also their impact on winning, especially
Yep.
recently with Luca Garza and at the beginning of the season with Josh Minot. I don't know that I necessarily make that trade like 100% of the time, but having him up so that if we end up in like a blowout scenario, we could give him some run would be
Yeah.
great. And then with Josh Minot out right now, like I think we should be one injury away from
Needing
him
him.
needing him. I think if in actuality if we had an injury, it would be Xavier Tillman's spot to lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any concerns about the game against the Hawks tonight?
No, I was just gonna say, I think
I'm a little
I
nervous.
the Hawks have been trending a little bit. Obviously traded Trey Young.
I like
Uh,
their team without Trey Young. There's
yeah,
like a
I think
lot
I
of
mean
guys I'm
CJ
high on.
McCollum has been a reliable veteran for what feels like 20 years. I think he's a good fit for what they're doing over there. Jaylen Johnson is having a hell of a year, getting a fair amount of
This
All-Star buzz. Um, yeah, I think they're good. I just don't know that I'm scared of them yet.
the Nikhil Alexander Walker Dyson Daniels backcourt reminds me a lot of like when we had like Terry Rozier and Marcus Smart together when they were both like just defensive prowlers. Like they were just like going for steals, locking guys up. There was like no
I think that's
weak
a great
point.
term.
Prowlers.
Prowler,
There's
defensive prowlers.
prowlers.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
No,
like
I think
and without
Nikhil
Trey
Alexander
Young,
Walker
they're
is.
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, Nikhil Alexander Walker's like their smallest player on the court at like 6'5", and then Dyson Daniels is 6'8", and they can both just guard every position and are always going for steals and just never let the other team rest. And I've
Yeah.
always liked backcourts like that. Um, and now that they don't have Trey Young as like the obvious like guy you go
Attack
at,
point. Yeah.
they become a lot harder to play, and that's part of the reason they traded him.
Yeah. I think that's super fair. Nikhil Alexander Walker, one of my favorite. I think since his days with the Pelicans, I was just like, I love that he is. I think I don't know if this is official, like the most ambidextrous guy in the league.
I don't know
Just
how
like
that would become official, but it sounds right.
I think he should get a plaque made. But yeah, super comfortable using either hand for shooting, for passing, for dribbling. I think that they have like that defensive backcourt is especially like they're still pretty young. Nikhil Alexander
Yeah.
Walker's been in the league for a while, but
He might
no,
win
I
most
think
improved this year. He's averaging like 18.
Yeah, no, I think that they have a fair amount of like developing talent. I think that in years to come, they're going to be like a contender. I think that having Trae Young this year kind of set them back a little bit in terms of the standings. I think in a playoff series, it would be really interesting to see
Veet Krejci is
how
scary.
you. Yeah. No, I think.
I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna laugh when I said that,
No,
but
yeah, he
yeah,
is.
he
He is
is
very
scary.
scary.
Yeah.
No, I think that they're going to be interesting to scheme against in years to come, especially like as their young guys continue to develop. But on a Saturday night, I feel confident about our chances. I think we just have a little bit more. Again, they're also still developing chemistry. Like they just had a really big shakeup in their team. That Trae Young was the guy for so long. Um, I think that they will end up climbing much higher in the standings this season. And I think there's a fair chance that we might see them at some point in the playoffs. And I think that'll be a really fun series. For tonight, my prediction is that we win by 7.
Okay, I like it. Nice. I think that's all for this episode of Jayson Confused.
It's good to
Matt,
be
till
back.
next time.